Tacoma lift stuff you want to know. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Robmotive. Today, I went out to the old Google, and I thought I'd ask a question. Toyota Tacoma lift stuff you want to know. I was curious. You know, there's always questions out there about the Toyota Tacoma, lifting it, whether it'll do damage, how high you should go, all that kind of stuff. And people ask me all the time. And of course, it depends on what you're looking for and what you're trying to achieve, what you're going to do with the truck. So I posed the question, or the query, if you will, Toyota Tacoma lift stuff you want to know. And here is what the Google has told me. Now, real quick, before I run through this stuff, if you haven't before, make sure you smash that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. So let's dig right in here. First question, and I love this one because I think it's a thing that most people ask when they're considering lifting their Toyota Tacoma. How high should you lift your Tacoma? It says here, when you go into rougher terrain where the trail is covered with large rocks and stumps, you should bump it up, the Tacoma that is, with a 3 to 4 inch lift. That's pretty standard. I think that's the most popular height, really right around 3 inches that people do today. It says when you get involved with even bigger obstacles, I think you'd need a tank or something, but bigger obstacles like full-on rock crawling or something similar, a 6 inch lift is much more appropriate. Of course, it's going to cost you more. You're going to have more things to deal with. That is really a more advanced type lift. So really 3 to 4 inches. Next up, how much lift do I need to clear 33 inch tires on the Tacoma? It says here, they're not saying it's impossible to fit 33s with no lift. Well, I'm here to tell you it is. If you try to put 33s on the Tacoma and you don't do any lift, you're going to have a rubbing problem. It says, but you will definitely need to cut or trim something. You should be good with a 2 to 3 inch lift, depending on if you clear the control arms or not. So that kind of gets into offset a little bit too. You kind of have to move it out and then you run into more rubbing troubles. So it's kind of a slippery slope. I would definitely say you cannot fit 33s without doing something, either in the form of cutting or lifting the Tacoma itself. Next up, do lift kits damage your truck? This is a hugely popular question on my channel. It says, the ride itself, the steering and the handling will all feel different. I have said this many times through my own experience. This is my third lifted Toyota Tacoma, and it's only lifted actually in just the front. There's videos on the channel about what I did with my truck, but you're definitely going to change the way it feels. It says these changes put unusual stresses on the vehicle as opposed to the vehicle's original design. Well, of course, Toyota spent a lot of money and paid a lot of engineers to come up with the current stock design. Note that an improperly installed lift kit can damage the suspension, the frame, or the body. There are plenty of examples out there. You know, I blew a CV axle boot. That was a problem. It was due to the lift. Of course, if you don't do it right, you can have rubbing, other suspension problems, just all kinds of trouble. So does a lift damage the Toyota Tacoma, or can it? Well, of course it can. This next one I find very interesting. I'm a bit embarrassed. I'm a bit humbled. This next question or topics is, how should I lift my Toyota Tacoma? And look what comes up on the screen. Right there. Does that guy look familiar? Well, it's me. I guess mine made the list. The video is Tacoma lift checklist if you're considering lifting a Tacoma or lifting your Tacoma. I'll leave a link down below that. I'm not going to go through my whole video, but that's one of the lines that come up. You saw it yourself. Isn't that funny? I get a kick out of that. Next up, does a 2-inch lift need a diff drop? Another big question on the channel people ask about. It says the general rule to follow is that anything over a 2-inch lift over stock should consider a diff drop, and those with lifts below this can get away with it. So if you're going above 2 inches, yes, you need a diff drop. I think it's only safe to go. It goes on to say, this is not to say that in some applications, a diff drop would not be an improvement on your setup, even if it's sitting at only a 2-inch lift. I would discuss that with your shop. Find somebody who's knowledgeable on the type of lift that you're doing and the conditions that you're going to be driving in, and get advice from them. They're the experts, hopefully. Hopefully you're taking your truck in to have it lifted by someone who's an expert, and they should be able to clarify that for you. Next up, we're gonna do just 2 more on here. Can you lift a Toyota Tacoma? Well, we all know that's true. It says here the rear suspension of the Tacoma is far less complex than the front suspension. We know that. Leaf springs locate the solid rear axle and carry the weight. The rear suspension can be lifted through the use of a lift block, add a leaf, or replacement lift spring. Very easy to do in the back. There's just not much back there, and that's good. This is where the simplicity of the Tacoma comes in handy, particularly if you're interested in doing a lift. All right, the last one here says why you should not lift your Toyota Tacoma. It says, handling is going to take a hit. I can attest to that, as the truck's center of gravity is going to be much higher. Well, it depends on how high you go. Much higher, I wouldn't really say 2 inches is much higher, but when you get into 3, 4, 6 inches, yeah, that's much higher. It goes on to say this will also require driving at slower speeds, especially while turning, as the higher a vehicle gets, the less stability it will have while cornering. Well, this just makes perfect sense. I mean, if you take the weight of anything and bring it higher up in the air, it's gonna be more prone to have problems when you're turning hard. I experienced that in a Jeep Wrangler years ago, and it wasn't even lifted. They're top heavy anyway, and I brought that thing up on 2 wheels on the freeway. That was a scary experience. So anyway, these are Toyota Tacoma lift stuff that you wanted to know. I thought it'd be interesting to check. I already knew a lot of these things myself. Just kind of reinforces what I do with my own trucks, and then advice that I give out when people ask me questions as well. Leave a comment, let me know. Did you know all this stuff? Were you aware of all this? Are you maybe considering lifting your Tacoma? And these things matter? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, if you didn't in the beginning, make sure you smash that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. I do have 2 additional channels, Robmotive FST, all about full-size trucks, and Robmotive JT, all about Jeep Gladiators and a little bit of Jeep Wrangler content thrown in there. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.